Peace and welcome to the culture right here on the Black Star Network. Folks, we got a great show for you. A lot of things we're going to talk about. We're going to kick off the first conversation talking about environmental justice, what the Biden administration is planning to do to create an infrastructure to relieve communities and neighborhoods of environmental justice pollutants and other issues without talking about race. We'll be checking in with Brother Mustafa Santiago Ali to give us some insight about this conversation. Also, let's talk about the fact that we are seeing a major change in how we're moving forward dealing with this whole Super Bowl issue. We're going to get into some conversation around that. And of course, we're going to talk to our culture crew about all of the things relating to whether it's Mary J Blige and dealing with alimony, whether it's dealing with all of the other cultural conversations that we're discussing. So we got a lot to talk about. Stay with us. It's the culture right here on the Black Star Network. Peace and welcome to the show, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in this afternoon. Today, we want to have a very different conversation, a conversation that's near and dear to my heart, which is a conversation around environmental justice. Now, we have these discussions about environmental justice in a way where we're only talking about pollution, where we're only talking about trash, when we're talking about, major oil leakage, or when we're talking about power lines in impoverished neighborhoods. But today, the Biden administration, under the leadership of Brenda Mallory, and she's working with the White House on their environmental protection laws and policies. Brenda's moving forward on creating an infrastructure that's going to challenge environmental justice issues from the Biden-Harris White House. Now, along with those big challenges, we know that Black people and brown folks and folks who are oftentimes in these impoverished neighborhoods where a lot of these environmental justice violations are taking place, that they're often, these are the places where are suffering the most, are disproportionately suffering. And so what Ms. Mallory is moving to do is saying, okay, we need to put some pieces in place, but we can't talk about race. And this is going to be the context for our conversation today, looking at how can we have a conversation about environmental injustice? How can we have a conversation about all of the pollutants that are affecting low-income and impoverished neighborhoods, especially where Black people reside? How can we have this conversation without talking about race? Well, this could be a government strategy. This is a move that EPA officials and other environmental officials and activists are saying is the best way to move forward without going up against legal issues, without dealing with any type of blowback. Here to give us some insight about this whole discussion and what we can expect from the Biden-Harris administration around this issue of environmental justice is Brother Mustafa Santiago Ali, who is a former senior advisor for the Environmental Justice Division of the EPA, and he's also former associate director. Brother Mustafa, thank you so much for joining us, dear brother. We truly appreciate it.
It's an honor to hold space with you.
Absolutely. Let's look at this whole situation, dear brother, where we're saying with the Biden administration, with the EPA and official Brenda Mallory has made the point that they're going to move forward on creating some measures and put some measures in place to address this issue of environmental justice that we know has been plaguing particularly Black and brown communities for decades in this country, to say the least. But she's planning to do this in such a way where they're not able to, or then they choose rather not to talk about race. How can you have a conversation or even move forward on creating an infrastructure that challenges environmental justice without talking about race? Is this a government strategy, or what are we seeing here, brother?
Well, it's definitely a government strategy because it's definitely not the people, because the people have been very clear. Environmental justice leaders and other stakeholders have made sure that they shared with the administration and others that race is an important element. You know, it is the predeterminer of many of these impacts that are happening inside of our communities. We should just give folks just a quick history on how we got to where we are. So racism created these sacrifice zones, you know, where Black and brown and indigenous communities continue to be impacted by toxic pollution. It was that racism that existed inside of, you know, policy on transportation, the policy that existed and continues to exist around housing and housing discrimination, on economic racism that continues to play out in who gets resources and who doesn't. So historically, racism has played a role in policy and how resources have and have not made it to certain communities, and also the impacts that are part of that process. So to not have race as one of the criteria, because folks haven't asked for it to be the only criteria. They said that it has to be a criteria, means that there are gaps in the process at best.
But let's talk about this. The White House is planning to move forward on creating putting some measures in place to deal with this issue of environmental justice and injustice, environmental racism. And as I mentioned earlier, Brenda Mallory, who is kind of spearheading this effort, she serves as the chairwoman of the White House Council of Environmental Quality. She's saying that, quote, "We are still trying to set up a framework and a tool that will survive." And I'm assuming that she's speaking about the fact that there have been long-standing issues affecting Black and brown communities in particular around this issue. But the big thing is, as you were just explaining to us, you know, you can put these measures in place, but the talk about not including race, which it seems to be very weird to me, I'm asking, is that a government strategy? Does Ms. Mallory think that that's the best way she can get some things done without going through any legal challenges?
Yeah, well, the last thing I heard you say, brother, was, you know, the question was, you know, is this the most effective way of being able to move forward? So right. folks should understand that, you know, there are these legal precedents that are out there, whether we're talking about the Supreme Court or some of the lower courts that have raised the bar in the relationship of being able to utilize race as one of the factors in making decisions.
Yeah.
And there is an upcoming Supreme Court case also focused on education, once again, you know, that's dealing with that particular issue. So I'm sure that that is a part of the analysis of both Brenda and the administration in trying to figure out how to navigate this. You know, the dynamic that we're dealing with is the fact that if we only use socioeconomic status along with a number of other criteria, then there are folks who don't fall, you know, who are not sitting under the poverty line, but yet are still dealing with significant amounts of pollution. And brother, here's the thing. Sometimes folks just don't understand the seriousness of what we're talking about. You know, in this country, we've got over 200,000 people who die prematurely from air pollution every year. That's more people dying from air pollution than are dying from gun violence. More people are dying from air pollution than are dying from car crashes. More people are dying from air pollution than are dying from overdoses of drugs. And all of us who have worked in the civil rights and the social justice world have you know, done what we can to address, you know, many of those issues. So when we take race out, we know there has been decades upon decades upon decades of research by folks of color and others that have shown us that, you know, the most important factor is race. It is not the only factor, but it determines in many instances where these sacrifice zones are, how they were created, and race is the predominant factor. So we have to be very mindful of that. And that's why for some, they're like, if racism and race played a role in how we got here, how do you find resolution without utilizing race as one of the criterias in helping to address the egregious acts that have happened against our communities?
Absolutely. And you know, I agree with you there, dear brother, because I believe that if we don't confront racism, if we can't even say race, then we're going to have a very, very real problem down the road. And it opens up the door, I would think, for people to take advantage of, if you were to use language like minority, if you would use language like disenfranchised or impoverished, or if you look or the primary metric to determine whether a community gets the necessary resources would just be based upon income, I think that sugarcoats the larger problem, which is that Black and brown communities have been victimized and have been oppressed by environmental issues.
Without a doubt. Think about it like this for all of your viewers. If we take race completely out as one of the predictors, as one of the elements in the criteria that we use, it's almost like you going to the doctor and the doctor says you got cancer, but I'm only going to treat, I'm only going to treat 70% of what you got. Well, you still got cancer and the impacts that come from that cancer. Racism is a cancer in our country, always has been. And until we are willing to extract it out, to do what's necessary to eventually eliminate it. And a part of eliminating it is calling it out and then figuring out the elements of steps that we have to do to address it.
Absolutely. I want to bring in my culture crew members, Nira Muhammad, who is a writer, who is an activist, an educator, and she serves as the host of Queen Talks with Nira podcast. And then we also have Elijah Miles, who serves as the chairman and founder of chairman and founder of Tadea Family. Excuse me. He's joining us as well. Elijah, Nira, thank you so much for being a part of today's conversation.
Always.
You're welcome, brother. When we look at these issues, Nira, I'm gonna start with you there. When we look at these issues, and the fact that we're still are having a problem directly confronting the issue of race in any type of space, but when we look at it, especially here in dealing with this environmental racism, what do you think that this will do if the government moves forward on creating a framework that does not explicitly and exclusively speak to the ills that Black and brown communities suffer from as a result of environmental injustice?
Yeah, so as I was doing my research, I wanted to figure out why they were doing this. And one of the things that they said, or the reason why, is because they're worried that using race to identify and help disadvantaged communities could trigger legal challenges that would stymie their efforts. So administration officials feel like they want to use this system so that they can impact communities of color without defining it as such. To be honest, it's a political move. We already know that. But I personally believe that if you want to get the work done and you think that using the word race or Black communities is going to stymie those efforts, then by all means, I feel like get the work done in any way that you can possibly get it done. I do wish that they could say that it was they were honoring Black and brown communities. But again, if that is going to slow down the process of actually getting that work done, I don't care about semantics. Just get the work done.
Just get the work done. Elijah, when you're talking about getting that work done, and it's still, as I mentioned, I think it opens up a floodgate where, yes, some work can be done, but you might still see some resources going to, certain communities versus others because it wasn't explicit, it wasn't exclusive. Is that a concern that you may have around this issue?
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think that they have to say Black. And I think the longer we go on in history, we're more scared to say Black than anything else, which is why we say people of color with everything. Even during Black History Month, this might as well be People of Color History Month. And so the thing is that we're afraid to say Black and we're afraid to talk about the real issues. And when we do that, when we don't discriminate about the affected parties and the affected communities, then the funding go every which way. And so when it comes to the issues that plague Black communities, I think we got to be real explicit about what communities we're talking about so we can direct that funding. How can we discriminate when it comes to pain, discriminate when it comes to segregation, discriminate when it comes to slavery, but when it's time to apply solutions, we don't want to discriminate and talk about race. I think it's hypocrisy.
Oh, that's an excellent point.
Could I just
yeah,
ask
sure,
you,
absolutely.
one of the things that they're saying is that with us going into a political year, with Democrats wanting to push this, that's going to be a lot of pushback from Republicans who are going to then push white grievances. So then we're going to change the conversation again. So now we're having to deal with white grievances. So personally, I don't want to give them more attention. If you can get the work done, get it done. If you putting the word black in this equation is going to make it so that nothing happens at all, then why would we want that? How is that a better alternative to them saying we're going to work in disenfranchised communities? We already know what disenfranchised communities are. We know that. We know that those are black and brown communities. Just get the damn work done. Stop being so worried about getting your feelings. Oh, please say black. Please say black. We know we're black. We know we're disadvantaged.
Yeah.
Like, stop. Just stop. Like, let them just get the fucking work done. I'm sorry, excuse my language. Get the work done. I'm so tired of us always needing to be coddled by white people. I don't care. I know my color. You know my color. Just do the damn work.
Brother Mustafa, yeah, go ahead, Lodge. Go ahead.
Mira, you assuming that the Democratic Party or the Republican Party care anything about me and you. So when you say
I never said they cared about us.
When you say we, I completely agree that me and you know what we talking about. But I do not agree that the Democratic Party, when they say disenfranchised communities, when they say impoverished communities, that they have any good intention about doing that. That's why black has to be in there. Because when you say black is in there, it's not going to be done. When you say black communities, you make sure that the funding goes to black communities that have been disadvantaged by the processes that we're talking about. But when you don't say black, then we get the bait and switch, which is why no matter what we talk about Chicago or Detroit or Baltimore City, the communities that we talk about never see change because we never explicit about who we talking about.
We have black people in politics right now. We have black people in power.
Okay, hold on.
We're talking about just in Baltimore City alone. We've had black leadership. We've had black leadership in Baltimore City, and we've seen what black leadership has done. That word black doesn't always mean shit. That's the point I'm making. I do want the work done. I do want to see environmental justice for black communities. But guess what? I don't want to see this turn into a political war over one word. Just get the work done. That's all I'm saying, Elijah. Elijah, I agree with you. Democrats don't have our back. I know that. But I know this government. I know politics. This is gonna be politics as usual, and it's gonna get wrapped up in this rabbit hole of semantics, and nothing's gonna get done. That's
I feel like I'm on both sides of the equation, brother Mustafa. Like there are, you know what I mean? Like there are strong arguments for both sides. How do you find the balance? How do you reconcile between both of those arguments?
Well, that's the process that's going on right now. So there is a comment period that's coming up where folks get to weigh in, just like the other guests are doing here today, on the best pathway forward. And then folks, at the White House will take that information and they will come up with some type of a final policy, if you will, a set of actions. Now, folks should understand this. The Biden administration for the first time ever has had a president who has not just said the words environmental justice, but actually put some structures in place and has said that there's going to be an all-of-government approach. There's also something called EJ40, which means that 40% of the benefits on the federal side of the equation are supposed to go to, black and brown and indigenous and API and lower wealth white communities. So we should be mindful of that. But we also got to ask the hard questions. If we follow just having socioeconomic status and a number of the other pieces of the criteria, that there may be 30 or 40% of our folks who won't get resources. That's not guaranteed, of course, but we have to be mindful of those who will fall outside of, what those sets of criteria will actually capture if you don't have, some of the language we've been talking about today. Here's the other part, as I close, that's incredibly important. When we're talking about the bipartisan infrastructure bill, and if there's a piece of the Build Back Better and some of these others that are going to push, hundreds of billions of dollars from the feds down into the states and then the counties and the local governments, the language that is shared at that time is how and where they are going to focus. So we got to be mindful that this is not just about the feds, even though that's this part of the conversation. It is also about the guidance that will be shared, with all these other levels that actually hit the ground where people, are making decisions.
Absolutely. I want to just throw this out there because I think it's important for the sake of this conversation to let folks know that along with the determining factor of race, the other metrics that they plan to use in this plan are based on a dozen of other data points. Brother Mustafa, you talked about this: household income, unemployment rates, air pollution levels, and proximity to what they call Superfund sites, incinerators, and other hazards. So it's not, there are other points or other criterion in this whole process. And again, folks, this is known as Justice 40. This is how they're rolling this plan out, because they're calling it this because they're saying that at least 40% of the benefits of federal investments in environmental cleanup, clean energy, and climate mitigation would be felt in disadvantaged communities. So we're seeing that, yes, there are other criteria on the table. And like I said, brother Mustafa, like, I feel like, yes, Elijah, you got to say black, because how many times we've seen black when it's not there, it's going to be, something else. But then I'm with Nira too, because I do want to see the work done. I don't want to see environmental racism, injustice, and environmental injustice become a political football over one word or over, a designation of a people. So it's absolutely frustrating to that we're in the place. I know, brother Mustafa, you have to jump off, but any final thoughts on something that we can consider as we move forward with this conversation?
Well, we need everyone to get engaged with both the dynamics that are happening on the ground to our communities, helping folks to understand the impacts. The other part of it is, I often talk to folks about really thinking about the economic opportunities of helping to make change inside of our communities and positioning ourselves for these resources that are coming, which is critically important, because if we don't do it, then other communities or other folks will actually take advantage of those resources and do the work in our communities and take the benefits away. And then the third part is that we have to continue to focus on our vote. And here's why. Our vote is actually tied to what has happened with the Supreme Court, and it's tied to these lower courts as well. And sometimes we don't focus as much about how we play a role in determining, who sits on these very important judicial boards and who are the judges and other things that are actually interpreting the law and making some of these really, really egregious sets of actions that are impacting our community. So we have a lot of power. We've got power to get engaged in framing and power to actually frame out what happens in the future.
Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali, who serves as the former senior advisor for environmental justice for the EPA. Doc, thank you so much, dear brother, for being a part of this conversation. We'll certainly bring you back on very soon to talk about other issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Y'all stay blessed.
You too, brother. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come right back, let's talk about a preschool in Massachusetts that thought they were celebrating Black History Month, but ended up offending Black people. We'll have that conversation up next. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Folks, we want to now switch gears on the conversation as we want to discuss what's going on with one Montessori school. Now, the school is called IC Kids, which is a Montessori school in Massachusetts, but they've been under fire after a teacher after school instructed, check this out, folks, children to wear blackface as part of a Black History Month celebration. Now, according to the reports, the incident occurred last week when the teacher had the children paint their faces black, blackface mask on paper plates that they held over their faces. I can't even believe this. As I'm sharing this story with you folks, I'm just in a state of shock that in 2022, we're still at a place in this country where people don't know that blackface is offensive. In 2022, we're at a place where people don't know that blackface is offensive. Now, according to one parent, a Black mother, she said that she took her children out of the school saying that it's unacceptable and she didn't understand the concept of this project. But now the school has come out and apologized and said that that they're sorry for the mishandling of this celebration. Now, in a letter posted on the door of the IC Kids Montessori School, the school wrote, quote, "To celebrate Black History Month, a teacher and toddler classroom at IC Kids planned and carried out an activity that involved black mask, blackface. One of the parents brought it to our attention and was offended. The teacher apologized to the parent. The director was aware of said incident, which occurred on February 8th, and this was immediately addressed. The activity was removed from the classroom and the teacher reprimanded for such actions." The school noted that while the wording of the Facebook apology was not the best statement, they said they were trying to send a message to say that research for toddler curriculum was not executed or completed in the manner that it should have been, so they apologize to everyone and anyone that may have been offended. I want to go to our resident educator, Nir Muhammad, and our other resident educator, Elijah Miles, here of our culture crew, to give us some insight about this. This situation here, I'm going back to my original premise on this, Nira. 2022, you don't wear blackface under any circumstances. You don't tell children to wear blackface under any circumstances.
It goes without saying, though. Like, you don't even, it should. I'm just saying it should go without saying. We should not have to say that. I am all for Black History Month celebrations. In fact, I was the only teacher at the elementary school that I worked at who did a walking gallery and research project for Black History Month every single month. I mean, every single Black History Month. And I was told the first year that I did it that it was too ambitious and that my students could not do it. So that was, I mean, by one of my white counterparts. So I always had an issue with the way that some of my white counterparts look at educating Black children in general. So that's a whole other conversation. But there's a way to teach Black history without students dressing up in blackface. For instance, I had two of my students, and all of my students, whether they were white or Black, had to participate in this research project. And on the day of presentations, they had to come to class dressed as the person that they did their research project on. Some of my white students were James Baldwin. I had another student who was George Crumb. I had another white student who was Dr. Charles Drew. He came in there with a white lab coat on. He didn't do blackface. He didn't have to. My student who was George Crumb, he came there with a beard, a mustache, just like George Crumb, and he came in there with an apron, and he came in there like he was a chef, and he was cooking. So there's a way for students of all nationalities to represent and honor Black history in a respectful way. First of all, reprimanded is not good enough. She should have been fired, period.
Yeah.
It's no other way to put it. She should have been fired. That's unacceptable. She does not need to be told that it's unacceptable. It's that simple.
Elijah, do you think that the teacher was doing this from a space of maliciousness? Just to make mockery of our history?
It could be a space of ignorance because I have taught in schools, and there are abundant, in today's world, there are abundant of Teach for America teachers that come straight out of white institutions working at Black schools or working with children in 19, 20, 21, 22 and don't know the right hand from the left. No offense. And so the thing is that it could be ignorance. And I don't want to assume about the attention, but my point is, what I believe is when will we as Black people draw the line? I think this has been a heck of a Black History Month with the critical race theory debates, with the fight against Black History Month, and now with this situation. And I think we as a people had to begin to draw the line and figure out, how can we come together and build our own schools? And I know people hate to talk about that, but why should we as a people have to deal with the public school system as it is? Whether it's in Baltimore or anywhere, why do we have to deal with the public school system as it is? And white kids have the choice between being in a public school system or going to Gilman or Calvert Hall or St. Paul's or McDonough, all these prestigious private schools. So I think we as a people have to begin to think about, Afrocentric schools that's teaching our kids and grounding our kids in who they are and what their responsibility is to the community. Because even if it's ignorance, maybe you too ignorant to be in front of Black kids.
No, I agree with you. And you talked about the teachers that are coming out of Teach for America. I'm wondering, and both of you, please enlighten me, because I'm really wondering, when they go through that level of training, is there a point, or is there a part of that training that includes cultural sensitivity, for lack of a better word? Is there a part of that training that includes that, you may be asked to work in a predominantly Black school?
No. If you go through the Teach for America program, you're going to work in an urban school. That's part of the program itself. Okay. But teachers, oh my God, I can't tell you how many diversity, inclusion, biases, trainings we have to take so many of those professional development trainings. They are a nuisance. I personally hate sitting through them because Farajii, I can't even tell you some of the stuff that comes out of the mouths of some of the teachers when we're sitting through.
Are they completely? But I'm saying, are they like completely clueless? Like if you. Like, I'm saying, let's have a real conversation about race, that some white people are completely clueless.
My biggest issue is that they come in thinking they're like a white savior to Black children. And when you come in with that mentality, you cannot create giants. because you teach from a level of pity. You don't think that they are great. Oh no, they can't do that. I cannot tell you how many times my seasoned white teachers have told me, Miss Muhammad, that is too ambitious. That's too much. They can't do that. Oh my gosh, did you really tell the students to go start over? You damn right I did. You damn right. Nope, wrong, start over. Yes, I taught my students that way. And when I tell you how much they appreciated it, how much their parents appreciated it, I did not teach Black children in a way in which I pity them. You're great. And I'm going to show you how great you can be. And I cannot tell you how often I saw that. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to get out of the system, because it was sickening, Farajii. I can't even tell you.
Elijah,
I'm stop treating these kids like they're a charity case.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the big things that we're seeing, because teaching, and I'm a huge advocate of teachers, obviously, but more importantly, it's like, I know that teaching is not just a job; it's a calling. It's a calling. It is a labor of love, because one, we damn sure don't pay teachers enough money that they deserve for dealing with some of these children in terms of all of the developmental challenges of some of the children. We don't pay them enough for that. We don't give them the respect. I mean, yes, we have little days like National Teacher Awareness or Teacher Week, or all of those things. But I'm talking about true respect for the educator, for the classroom teacher, is beyond just giving them a little day. It's beyond that, especially when you're talking about systems, Elijah, that don't really do their due diligence to provide the resources, the funding, and the support that teachers need. You have teachers who are great teachers on their own, but they're in crappy schools. And so if the culture of the school is one of, like Nira pointed out, one of pity, the culture of school is one of, well, we'll just teach them a little bit because they can't handle a lot. If that's the culture, brother, then I don't see Black people coming into the teaching profession in droves, and I don't see Black children being edified by the teaching of some of these folks. What's your take on that?
No, that's the truth. There is a culture of low expectations for Black kids, and it does come from, it comes from, and this is why, liberals are sometimes white liberals are sometimes no better than white conservatives, because they still have the racism in their minds that Black kids and Black people are inferior. And so the liberal is just more sympathetic to that. And the conservative is more like, yo, you know what I mean? Let them do for self. So the point is, what white liberal teachers that are in these schools, they definitely do look down on Black kids. And they don't see value in the Black community. They don't see value in the neighborhoods that they come from. They don't understand the neighborhoods they come from. They don't understand the culture that surrounds their life or the problems that they deal with. They want nothing to do with that. They come to save. They come to do their mission that they feel like they got from God to raise up.
To tame the savages. To save the savages.
To save the savages. And so even at like private schools that are set up for poor Black kids, because they are those from Catholics and different things like that, the goal is to civilize the savage. Let's put a tie on them. Let's teach them how to talk white. Let's teach them how to walk like how we walk. Let's teach them how to write how we would write, because it's the underlying that if we could just civilize them, their situation would be better. But it is definitely a culture of inferiority and low expectations for Black kids. And with a culture like that, I agree with Nira. You can't produce giants. You can't produce people that's going to come and shift and change the world, because in the back of their mind, they still think inferior. And that's why even the best of us, as Carter G. Woodson points out in The Miseducation of the Negro, even the best of us that come from these schools or go to college, we don't come back and change, do nothing for the community, a lot of us, because in the back of our mind, we got to play the game. We got to play the game to get ahead. Brother, we don't got our own yet. And so we got to play just to get ahead in this white man's world. And with that in your mind, with that in our mind, we can't do nothing to change our community, because we we shaken and afraid, and we feel inferior.
So let me ask this. I think many people are wondering the idea or the proposed solution that people put on the table, saying if you want to change how education is done, especially with Black children, we need more Black teachers.
I agree.
And here's the other part of that, though. Are we just talking about Black teachers that are just going to come into a system and just kind of go along, get along type of mentality, curriculum? Or are we talking about really having Black teachers who has a consciousness to understand the dynamics of race and poverty, to understand the dynamics of history, to understand the dynamics of some of these
Farajii, that's the thing. So like at Morgan State University, they have a program. The elementary education program is for urban teachers. It's designed for teaching the Black and brown child. So that's another thing. We talked about HBCUs and the importance of HBCUs. If you go to an HBCU like Morgan State University and you study elementary education, you are being taught to teach the Black and brown child. Again, even as a teacher, I told you when I came in that first year, I hated the books that my principal gave me to teach. The next year, I scrapped them. And then guess what? Before entering my third year, I wrote the curriculum for 5th grade. Now, whether or not the 5th grade teachers use the curriculum that I wrote, that remains to be seen. But you damn right, get into education. I can't even tell you how many kids that weren't in my class were coming to me in the hallway. I wish I was in your class, Miss Muhammad. Black children want to be taught by Black faces. The amount of I've had students who I've had other teachers say, "Why did you talk to that student like that?" Oh my gosh, and I could because they looked at me like I was their mother. And they knew that when I talked to them that way, it came from a place of love. And they would say that to me, Miss Muhammad, thank you for not taking it easy on me. Thank you for holding me accountable. When you have a 5th grader tell you thank you for holding me accountable, you are doing your job right.
Come on. So so now we're at this place, Nira and Elijah, where we're seeing this incident at this Montessori school, which is considered to be, well, most Montessori schools across the country, they're considered to be a little bit better, quote unquote, than what we normally than the public school system. It's more of I'm assuming it's a charter school, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, their philosophies are different. The structure of the classroom is run a lot more different. Children are a lot more independent. It's a lot more hands-on work.
And it's a smaller classroom, right?
Much smaller classroom. Montessori schools can be great, but again, it depends on the educators. It depends on the curriculum. I know they have a lot more wiggle room with their curriculums than your standard school. So you have your public schools who may use a more rigid curriculum. Then you have your charter schools. Some of those schools, they may have purchased curriculums, or they could leave it up to the teacher to write their own curriculum. Personally, I did not go to 4 years of college to be a teacher to have someone write my lesson plans for me. What was the point of me going to school for that? So personally, I like having the autonomy to be able to write my own lessons because that's what I went to school for. I'm trained to do that. I didn't go to school to have someone say, here, this is what I want you to teach. I need the outline of, this is a unit, this is what they need to know. But then I like having the autonomy to be able to teach it the way that I want to teach it and create lessons that I know are more impactful for my students because I'm a creative and I teach creatively. So
let me ask you, Elijah, as we're looking at a situation like what just happened in Massachusetts, what do you recommend that parents and community members do if a school or if a teacher step way out of bounds like this teacher did at IC Kids in Massachusetts? How do you move forward from that?
Well, I wanted to add also another point into the conversation that what I've found in schools is that if there's a low expectation for Black kids, there's an even lower expectation for Black boys specifically. So as we talk about more Black students or more Black teachers coming into the school system, which is to be debated, but if that's the case, you definitely need Black male teachers because just because teaching and education is sometimes looked as a feminine trade, and so male students or Black males that are growing up that are striving to do great things, they don't strive to be educators. And so one of my hardest things that I had to do when I left the school that I was teaching at, it was the loss of the Black boys that was like, yo, like you only you one of only a couple of male teachers, let alone black male teachers, and you were my model for what my life could look like. And outside of you, you know, I got Uzi Vert, and you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that was
Elijah, you gotta be careful, man. It was this black teacher at my school, man. All the moms was on him.
Yeah.
All the moms. I was like, oh.
Yeah, the parents think you got more money than you do.
Listen, and look, he was like a tall, bald-headed black man. All the moms was, can my child be?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
well, you know what?
You gotta watch that. You
gotta watch it. And you know what? It's something that somebody told me, the good black man syndrome.
Yeah.
The good black man syndrome is basically, you know, you are the father figure. You are the best coach. You know, I mean, people have done this for years with me. You know, can you mentor my son? Can you coach me? Can you spend some time with my son? And it's like, I got children. I got this to deal with. You know, I'm
over here like, no. Absolutely.
I can't step up in that role. You know what I mean? But I do hear you. I truly agree with you that, you know, some of the most dynamic teachers that I've come across in all my years have been, of course, been black women, but it's certainly been some of the black men. I can name you about 2 or 3 off the top of my head that I have seen in the classroom who come with a level of firmness, but a level of love, like Nira described, that you don't see from other folks. So that is huge. And I think that, you know, when you look at it like this community in Massachusetts with this Montessori school they have to step their game up. They have to make sure that those black men and those black women are there. And the huge problem, which is beyond the teacher's pay grade, is that these districts aren't doing the best in hiring the most qualified black teachers. They're not doing their best. They're doing minimum, I mean, very, very minimum, almost mandatory work to even interview black teachers and to bring them into their system. So there's still a lot of work to be done. But here's my take on this apology and all of that. They knew what they were doing. It's 2022. You can't say that you were ignorant that blackface is not offensive to black people. Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that. That's a bunch of BS. All right, look, I got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's come back and let's talk about the issue that we're finding around the country, which is this dealing with this idea of restorative justice. Now, how are we dealing with restorative justice? I want to share with you what one HBCU has done to deal with an issue when they found that they were robbed of certain equipment from the school and how they wanted to handle that situation. And then later, let's talk about Mary J. Blige. Now, normally we don't get into celebrity gossip, but I think the story of Mary J. Blige in this respect is something that's worthy of the conversation because it's just outright wrong. It's just absolutely wrong. And I think we need to talk about it. And of course, later on this hour, trends, posts, and doing the most. So we got a lot to get to. Stay with us. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for joining us for the second hour of the culture here on the Black Star Network. All right, I want to talk about an incident that happened at an HBCU, Simmons College of Kentucky. That's where we're going to have this conversation at. Simmons College of Kentucky. They were broken into and burglarized 2 times last week in thefts that totaled thousands of dollars worth of equipment that was taken from the HBCU. 2 different thieves went into Simmons College and decided to steal $45,000 worth of computers and audio gear from Axton Hall on Simmons College property and campus in Louisville, Kentucky. Now, 29 laptops and pieces of sound equipment were robbed from the school in the middle of the night. The first theft took place on Wednesday of last week, and the other was on Sunday. So officials have used surveillance footage to identify those who were responsible for this. Now, check this out, folks. Dr. Frank Smith, who serves as the vice president of Simmons College, and he serves also as the chief executive officer, he spoke about this break-in and the importance of the laptop. He mentioned that that the laptops were a grant to the college so that they can help the community with medical coding. And so he's very upset. But here's the interesting part about this whole case, and I think that we should have a discussion around this. The interesting part is that even though he could have pressed charges and moved forward on taking a legal route to address this issue, he is proposing something very different. The HBCU, which is known to uplift and help underdeserved communities, they just want to get the property back. But along with getting the property back, then Dr. Smith said that they would hate to have to be punitive, and they're going a different route. And it would be good if they can just return the items in the state they were in, and then he offered them enrollment into the school. How about that? So you steal from a school, but then the vice president, the CEO of the school says, look, just bring us our stuff back, and then we will also allow you to enroll in our school to be a part of our campus. Wow. $45,000 worth of equipment. Just bring it back, and then we'll get you in school. So there must have been some young people, some students. I want to bring back my culture crew, Nira Muhammad, who is a writer, who is an activist. She's an educator and host of Queen Talks with Nira podcast. And also I'm joined by Elijah Miles, who is the founder and chairman of the Tendare Family Organization. Nira, Elijah, when you think about this situation, a college that says, look, we just want our stuff back, and we want to put you in school. Now, restorative justice came to my mind on this, Nira, when you're looking at, how this could have been handled. And the reason I'm saying restorative justice, some people will say community policing. But the reason I'm bringing these ideas out there is because this is an unusual way to handle such an egregious violation.
I don't look at it as restorative justice unless there is some sort of community responsibility put on the student other than just going to school. I do like that they're not offering to press charges. I think that's really, really great. I think that even them offering for the students to go to school tuition free is really, really great. But there needs to be something else. There has to be, and that something else to me could be, for a month you have to clean the campus. You might have to do free tutoring at the student center or something on the campus. I'm not saying it has to be something getting the law involved, but I still believe that in that restorative justice, and I've taken multiple trainings on restorative justice. I've had to practice this in my classroom. There needs to be some sort of mediation done. There needs to be a sit down. We used to do these sort of justice circles where the offender talks to the defendant. So it's so many different levels to this. I do like, though, that they're not trying to go down the prison route. I think that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. That is the purpose of restorative justice, to get out of the pipeline to prison, in schools, and to really look at, some of those practices that we were doing before, like suspending kids, things that really weren't beneficial to the student. Suspending a kid didn't really change their behavior. It didn't make them say, oh, I'm not going to ever do that again because I don't want to stay home in bed for 2 days or whatever. So I do like the avenue that they're going down. I'm just not sure if anything is going to come of it.
So when you're talking about restorative justice, I mean, you're talking about seeking to examine the harmful impact of a situation on the people, or of a crime, and then determine what can be done to repair that harm while holding the person who caused it accountable for his or her actions.
Yeah, that's like, if a student breaks into my classroom, which has happened before, no, I don't want the student to go to jail, but maybe your punishment is to have a conversation with me, to understand how going behind my desk and going through my purse made me feel. And then possibly, maybe for the last 5 minutes of the day for a whole week, you come and you help me clean up my classroom. That's restorative justice to me. You took something from me, and then together we came to an agreement of what your punishment would be. Your punishment is coming here for 5 minutes at the end of the day to help Mrs. Muhammad clean her classroom. That's restorative justice. But you stealing from me and me just giving you like, oh, don't steal from me again, just give it back. That is not restorative justice. And that is not teaching our kids what really is going to happen in the real world if they go and steal.
So the part about it is that the offender has to admit that and hold themselves accountable for what they've done. It's not just like, we're just going to naturally forgive you. You have to think about the word
restore. You have to restore what was broken. You have to restore that connection. So if you can't, if I'm the victim and I don't feel like that the connection was restored, can we call it restorative justice? I am the victim.
Yeah. Elijah, what's your take on this, on how this college handled this situation? Like I said, there's that part of restorative justice, but then some folks are saying that this is a model of community policing. If these folks give themselves up and then, follow up on that offer to enroll in school, that this could possibly show us how to be compassionate with one another, and then at the same time still holding people accountable. Is this a level of community policing?
I think it is a level of community policing. I think it's a beautiful example of what an institution, what an HBCU has done and should become a trend among all HBCUs. I think the fact that a HBCU is doing this is not surprising, because I think the history of HBCUs says that they're always at the forefront of serving the people the best way they can. But I think the beautiful example, the real beauty about this is that it's avoiding mass incarceration. It's avoiding the school to prison pipeline, and they're taking the hands out of the criminal justice system. And so, and now you have to face the institutions. You have to face the community itself. I agree with Nera that there has to be some sort of accountability. But when you realize that, I didn't just rob, CVS. I didn't just rob, some random place that's disconnected from me. I robbed my own people. If these were Black kids, I'm not assuming that they are, but I'm only going to speak from a Black perspective. But I robbed the institution that's been serving us forever. And I think there has to be a meeting of the minds, and I think it does have to be some accountability with this situation. But I think I really do, for Black History Month, I think we should hold this up as a beautiful example of what our Black institutions that we have of power should do with their power, how they should exercise their power.
Some people, Elijah, would go as far as to say that when it comes to Black people offending other Black people, that our response, and we can have a lot of conversations about it, but our response is oftentimes very milquetoast, very weak. You know what I mean? Like we're not so hard on our own violators within the community. We're hard about those who come in from the outside of our community and violate us. But when it comes to our own, we don't use the same standard. You know, for example, people are saying, oh, during the great, you know, when we saw this rash of police shootings, people say, well, you know, some people were, well, why are we getting upset with the police when black people shoot themselves each and every day?
What I do believe that we're sometimes not hard on our own. And the reason we're not hard on our own is because we know, as black people in the black community, we know that our community is not organized enough to do something about our own. And that's why I say that the HBCU doing that is a beautiful example of what to do with power. But in the black community, when the brothers is on the corner and they harassing and terrorizing our neighborhood for whatever reason, you could say it's economics, you could say it's lack of education, you could say it's a breakdown in their family. When they're doing whatever they're doing in our community for whatever reason, we as a community, the 9-to-5 working black man, the 9-to-5 working black woman, we're not organized enough to be able to do something about that, to say, yo, look, we can find you employment, but you're not going to be selling drugs out here. We're not organized enough to do that. And what I would say is that what it spits on the legacy of the civil rights movement, it spits on the legacy of our ancestors, is that the 9-to-5 working black men and women stay on the sidelines and don't organize themselves to do things about the stuff that's in their community. It's easy to report the police department to some higher force. It's easy to point out these people that's in positions of power to somebody else that's bigger than them. But the people that's in your neighborhood, that's on the corner, other than calling 911, you're not organized enough. The so-called good of us is not organized enough to do something about the negative elements that happen in our community. And so out of fear and out of powerlessness, we sit by and watch and gossip about it. And so I think it is a real desire that we have to have a real movement to organize ourselves, or else we're not able to do stuff about that except tweet and Instagram about how crazy it is.
I was just thinking about when Elijah was talking, it made me think about, do you guys remember the young black man? His name was Kendrick, and he lived in Park Heights here in Baltimore. And he was murdered a few years ago because he didn't want them selling drugs, like using his yard to sell drugs. And he was building that fence to protect his family. And I think that speaks to what Elijah was saying. A lot of times, often, we are afraid, and we're like, you know what? I do want to say something about this, but is it worth my life? Is it worth my children growing up? So yes, that will take some organization. And we've seen that though. We have the FOI that are out in the community. I know we have, the Justice League who's been out in the community. We've had 300 men. I mean, LBS. I mean, I know Elijah. I've seen Elijah out in the community. Like literally, I've been driving down the street and seen Elijah.
We had to pull him from the streets to do this show.
Literally out there cleaning the streets with his group and team. And I've been like, that's amazing. And then we'll take our son out, and we do the same thing with Nigel. So I do believe that there is a lot of us that are trying to organize, but we have to get more and more people on board. Yes, we do show more compassion to Black people, but I think too, Farajii, it's because we understand each other. We know that's not really our nature. We know that is because of all of these other reasons. And that's not to give somebody a pass, but that's because you really do have to come from a different perspective. You do got to lead a little bit more with empathy than with hate. Because we're already getting that in the world.
And you know what? And I love that. And that was going to be my next point, Nira, which is that, when you're looking at idea of community policing, when you're looking at the idea of restorative justice, the underlying or common denominator between those two philosophies and methodologies is having empathy and love. Like you have to come from a place of empathy, compassion, and love. Because I see this happening when we have discussions about, Elijah brought it up, like when you have a discussion about what to do with the Black drug dealer in the neighborhood, right? Like, the Black drug dealer, his circumstances or her circumstances, right? That selling drugs is going to devalue the neighborhood. That selling drugs is going to lead to people being violent and possibly being killed. That. But then there is this other part of us, the cultural part of us that's saying, I don't want to see put another Black man in prison. I don't want to put another Black woman in prison. So we tolerate.
Some of those drug dealers are our family. They're our friends.
Right, they're our
people that we know. You know what I mean? Like, just because you're a drug dealer doesn't mean that you're a bad person. I mean, not saying this, I want you to be always selling drugs to my community, but again, we have to look at some of the reasons. How did this happen? What can we do to help reform this person's life? If we're going to take away them being a drug dealer, what are we going to replace that with? What does that look like for them? What does that look like for their family? So again, that compassion goes a long way.
But you know, here's the other thing. And Elijah, I think that you have often talked about this on your social media. I'm of the school of thought, brother, that I'm only willing to help you. Not only, I won't say that. I'm willing to help you, but look, when you're a grown ass man, you know the difference between right and wrong. You know the difference between doing good and doing evil, right? When you are in that space of violating the community, whether you sell drugs, whether you are, you robbing people, whether you raping women, or you doing some crazy madness stuff, that at this end of the day, it's like, yeah, I hear all of that pain that you're expressing and you're behaving from, but I'm only going to offer the olive branch, and I think we should only offer the olive branch, but for so many times. Like after a while, you just can't keep offering. And like, wait a minute, man, you're becoming a whole liability to our quality of life at this point. So we can't have you just running recklessly through the neighborhood, through the community, because you Black, and we don't want to see nothing happen to you.
And this is one of the issues, because we don't know how to balance empathy and righteous judgment. So our community is a no judgment zone. Yo, man, he's selling drugs. You don't know his life, man. He raping people, man. You don't know his life. And the thing is, when we live in a no judgment zone where we can't discriminate between right and wrong, I don't care why the rapper is rapping that. He's rapping garbage when it comes to as it relates to our community. When we can't discriminate between right and wrong, we unable to lift up right and condemn wrong. Not people, not condemn the people, condemn the action. And when we can't do that, we can't really bring the best for our community. So we have to be empathetic. But even the solutions to the economic problems our kids may be dealing with, even the solutions to the broken down of families that may be happening, all of those solutions arise through organization. We're not close enough as a community. We are like every neighbor, every person in the Black neighborhood is like a nation. Yeah, a nation unto themselves. I'm a little nation. I'm a little tribe. You're a little tribe. And I care about me and mine. I care about my kids. When we say Black community, it's really a figure of speech to describe Black people, because we really don't live in a community. Because when it comes to unity, oneness, because that's what unity and the Latin term means, is oneness. We're not one at all. And far as sacrifice, being willing to die for this stuff, I believe that until the 9-to-5 Black man or the 9-to-5 Black woman that has a family, until that person is willing to sacrifice as Malcolm X sacrificed and was killed, even though he had 4 daughters and a wife, even though as Martin Luther King sacrificed, even though he had wife and kids, until we are willing to sacrifice our lives to change our community, the community won't change. And until we will sacrifice time, blood, energy, whatever it takes to change our community, it won't change. And not only should we do that, I feel like because of the sacrifice of those that came before us, we have a duty, we have an obligation to do that. We must do that. And it's not because we want to die, but it was generations of us. And I end on this. It was generations of Black people that were on plantations, that were born slaves and died slaves. We go to beginning of slavery and end of slavery. It's people that was born and died.
400 years, Elijah. 400 years, brother.
Sacrificed their lives so that we can sit here and have this conversation. And then today, we allowing ourselves and our community to stay away because we are not willing to make that sacrifice today because of my kids and because of my family and because of my livelihood. And I think it's disrespectful to God. And I think it's definitely disrespectful to our ancestors and our people and our future generations that are not even born yet, that will have to live in this mess if we don't correct it.
No, I think that's an excellent point, dear brother. And the level of sacrifice that is required. And people tend to believe, you brought up the great Dr. Martin Luther King and great Malcolm X, but people tend to believe you have to make that level of sacrifice. I don't think you do, Nira. when we're talking about changing the community, especially talking about changing the culture, and I think this is one of the big conversations where the culture that we live in plays a huge part on how we interact and engage with one another, right? So, if you go out to any affluent neighborhood in any part of this country, you can't run up in those neighborhoods with, loud music. You can't put trash on the ground. You can't just walk around just aimlessly without somebody saying, "Excuse me, are you okay? Do you need some help? Or what are you doing?" There is a checks and balance system, an unwritten checks and balance system, a culture of checks and balances that exist in those communities, which keep those communities in a place of privacy, clean, keep those communities in a space where they can be affluent and not have to be worrying about all of the other elements around that neighborhood. So
yeah, it makes me, as you're talking, I'm literally thinking about Snowfall. I'm literally thinking about the first season of Snowfall, the way the show came on, the beauty of the Black community. And I'm thinking about where we are at the end of, what were we at, season 4? And you can see how the community looked from season. And I encourage each of you, just go back real quick and look at the very first episode of Snowfall and look at the last episode and look at the community. That explains a lot. I'm gonna just start there in terms of what our communities look like. But my sister and I were literally just having a conversation about how back in the day here in Baltimore, there were all these homes, like the neighborhood that my grandmother grew up in. All of those homes now are completely vacant. But we was talking about how back in the day, every Sunday morning, you would see grandmothers out there bleaching those marble steps, bleaching them. We would see grandmas out there with their brooms sweeping. We took care of our neighborhoods. Elijah made a beautiful point about how we saved the Black community, but we're not a community anymore. We stopped being a community when we stopped caring about the way that our front looked, just even something as our porch. We stopped being a community when our kids in the neighborhood couldn't run in and out of each other's home anymore. When we stopped allowing each other to raise our kids, we stopped being a community. So but we can look and see when that happened. If you look at the history books, you can literally see when the Black community began to turn, how the Black community began to turn. And now we just have to figure out how to restore it, because that's gonna be our word for today. We got to figure out how to restore the Black community, because it was beautiful and we took care of it and we loved our community and we were out there every day making sure that it was clean without being told to. We have to get back to that.
Absolutely. Elijah, I'm gonna let you get that final word in, brother.
So what I would say, because you brought up y'all bringing up a beautiful point, and definitely Farajii with this culture, and Nira's bringing it up too, that there was a culture shift with the crack epidemic. There's a culture shift with the coming of drugs and the changing of the economics of our community, and also with factories going. It's a culture shift. But if it has been a culture shift, the question is, how do we make the culture shift back to what it was, or make the culture shift back to a more positive culture? And for me, you can't do that outside of organized groups of people, because the culture is the way of life, the values, the principles, the morals of a group of people. And if we agree that our community is not a community no more, then what group of people is going to institute the culture? It's one thing to theorize about what the culture should be, but what group of people is going to institute the culture in a real life community? And that's why Tendea Family is grounded in a real life community. And we saying, yo, we're going to change this community. And we're going to make this community better. And we got to be willing. And the reason we got to be willing to sacrifice our lives, Farajii, is because in a community like ours, which is wild, wild west like sometimes, by saying, don't do that in my yard, you might get shot. And so that is constantly running in your head. Dang, should I tell them stop sitting on my steps? Should I tell them pick that trash up? No, man, I might get shot. And so if you got to accept the fact that, yo, I'm a walk in faith, and I'm going to do this because I believe it's the right thing to do. But, you know what I mean? I'm willing to sacrifice myself for principle. And not only am I sacrificing myself by myself, but I'm a part of this organized group of people that if I make that sacrifice, then the work will go on, and I'm really living for that work, and I'm not living for myself.
Hey, let me just say this as we take our next break. One of the big things that I think you pointed out, Elijah, is the fact of the culture. But more importantly, you know, we can set a different example by doing the small things. One of the things that I know we teach our son is that, look, you don't have to wait on anybody to do the right thing. You don't need permission to do the right thing. That if you have fear in your heart of your neighbors or the dynamics in your neighborhood, right? But you want to do the right thing, you don't got to make a big deal about it. Just go out there, for example, and say, okay, instead of, confronting a person, because I know that can be an anxious-filled moment. So you can say, you know what? I'm not going to confront the person. I'm going to start picking up the trash around the person. Just indirectly start picking up the trash.
Hey,
and then the person's going to be like, oh, yeah, my fault, man, my fault. Because now you're appealing to the human side of the individual versus appealing to the non-human side. You appealing to them to think, like it forces them to think and say, oh, you know what? I am making a mess. I'm a grown person making a mess. I am making a mess. Let me clean up after myself. Go ahead, Miriam. You got this.
Oh no, I just had to say, because I had one incident where we were living in Berkeley and there were guys always on our steps and I hated it so much. One day, I'm not gonna lie, I opened the door and I was like, so how much of this rent are you gonna pay since you always on my steps every day? That's what I asked them. How much of my rent are you paying? Right. If you want to see it every day, I just want to know how much you're going to contribute to this rent. Since I can't walk out my front door to get to my car without saying, excuse me, when this is my house, did I pay rent for? And they laughed, and they were respectful, like, because I was a little scared, because these are just like 4 guys always on my steps. And just by me just joking with them, they're like, you right, shorty, you got that, you right. So sometimes we could try to use a little bit of humor. Our people love humor. So sometimes it's all about how you approach people. It can be very scary. I was scared, but I was like, let me just try to make a joke out of it and see what happens. So sometimes we just have to change our approach because our people are not unapproachable. And that's what I wanted to get out of. We have to get out of being afraid of our own people. We are not that unapproachable. We just got to approach people with love and tact.
And I hope love and tact is, as we've had this big conversation, but back to Simmons College of Kentucky, I hope that the folks that are responsible for taking $45,000 worth of equipment from the college, return it to the college, and they can have that conversation, and they can use, Simmons College will use love and tact and say, look, you don't have to steal from us. All you got to do is enroll and you can use this equipment. I hope that this scenario, this situation really ends up well. And where they don't have to, use legal and go into the police and have these people locked up. I really hope, because I truly believe that they're probably young people behind this whole burglary, but I just really hope that this situation ends well. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's talk about Mary J. Blige. I'm going to share with you something that she recently shared with all of us about some of the trials and tribulations that are behind her new album, Good Morning Gorgeous. Now, we saw her on the Super Bowl halftime show, rocking and rolling and eventually falling out. But there is so much more to this dynamic soul singer. We're going to have that conversation. And we got trends, posts, and doing the most. So stay with us. A lot coming up in the final 30 of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
It's time to be smart.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
Oh, no punches!
Thank you, Roland Martin, for always giving voice to the issues.
Look for Roland Martin in the whirlwind, to quote Marcus Garvey again.
The video looks phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see it on my big screen.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
I got to defer to the brilliance of Dr. Carr and to the brilliance of the Black Star Network.
I am rolling with Roland all the way.
Honored to be on a show that you own. A black man owns the show.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Roland was amazing on there.
Stay black. I love y'all.
I can't commend you enough about this platform that you've created for us to be able to share who we are, what we're doing in the world, and the impact that we're having.
Let's be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared. You dig?
Folks, welcome back to the show. Okay, let's talk a little bit about soul singer, superstar R&B diva, Mary J. Blige. Now, we saw her put on a dynamic performance for the Super Bowl halftime show. She was looking great, she was feeling great, and she was rocking in the dancery. You hear me? Rocking. But according to a recent interview that the singer did, she shared that one of the biggest motivations for her new album, Good Morning Gorgeous, and I have to say this, folks, I absolutely love Mary J. Blige. Like, I've been, of course, if you watch Ghost, which is what, Power of Book 2, you know that her character, Monet Tejada, she gives you all types of situations. But after looking at her and her performance in that space, and then also just really reflecting, like I listened to her new album, some of the cuts from her new album, it's absolutely beautiful and dynamic. And when you start to look at her as an artist and how long she's been in this game, and I want to bring my culture crew for this one, Nira Muhammad, Elijah Miles, when we start looking at Mary J. Blige and the impact and influence that she has had on this game of hip hop and neo soul, I mean, one of the things that I will say about Mary is that she has been consistently, she made a song about it. She's been consistently Mary. You know, her sound has evolved, but who she is, she's never shied away from telling her story, speaking her truth. And she's always had this deep level of authenticity that you just don't see too much, especially from women who have been a part of this industry for so long as she has. And she still looked like she would take off them high boots and knock you in the face if you come across real crazy to her, right? But here's the situation. She went on to say in this interview where she said that she got a new song on her album called Rent Money. And she explained that the inspiration behind this situation, behind that song, was when the fact that she had a divorce from her ex-husband, Kendu Isaacs. And this divorce was a public divorce. It was a messy divorce, but essentially she had to pay alimony to this one man. They didn't have children there. She got to pay alimony to this one man. And the alimony that she had to pay, this thing is just mind-blowing, which was $30,000 a month that she had to pay for alimony for one man, to one man. Now, this happened back in 2016. This was a period between 2016 and 2018. So she was kicking out $30,000 a month for a 2-year period until it was finally decided upon that she wouldn't have to keep paying alimony. And she said that she literally had, the only way that she can keep up with this alimony was that she had to go on tour and make the money off of her tour sales or her tour. But then she also said in the course of that she couldn't pay her own rent. She putting $30,000 out to her ex-husband, But then she couldn't literally pay her own rent, and she fell into a deep depression and despair. Nira, I want to get your take on this first, and then Elijah. But when you hear a story like this, what comes to your mind? I could tell you the first thing that came to my mind. And that's
I can't say on air. I'm going to say the first word start with a P, the second word is an A, and the last one is an N. He is a. I'm going to say that. No, but honestly, I feel bad for her, but it does. Tristan Thompson out here paying $40,000 a month per child. He got 3 of them. So
that's $120,000 a month.
$120,000 a month.
Right.
I know my cousin boyfriend just lost his whole entire check to child support. I mean, a whole check. Yeah. Just gone.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Mary, it is what it is, baby. Black men, men gotta go through the same thing. That's what prenups are for. You knew that man. Obviously, he didn't have the kind of money that she had going into the relationship, or he would not have wanted or needed that much alimony. And she said he was spending all of her money. So, Mary, why did you get with a broke dude? You could get anybody. How you end up with a broke man, Mary? Why you ain't signed a prenup? These are the things that are going through my head, because I'm just like, it's hard. I don't feel bad for her any more than I feel bad for the men who go through the same thing. There are literally men out here who are kicking out just as much money in child support and alimony. This is the part of being a celebrity. Unfortunately, you did not get that prenup like you should have. If that man does not come into that marriage with just as much money as you or skill set as you, I'm getting a prenup. Right. And with everything that Mary went through in her prior relationships to even meeting this guy, ain't no way I would have went into that marriage without a prenup. Absolutely not.
And I'm in full agreement, but here's the other thing about this, Elijah, that I don't think that we can overlook, which is what caliber, what real man, and I'm saying this with every fiber of my being, brother, what real man would force his ex-wife to pay him that type of money and be good with it? See, that's one of the big issues I got. I understand Nira's point of prenup. I understand the fact that she went through, sometimes I saw a meme earlier today that some says broken women know how to love, but not who to love. Broken men know who to love, but don't know how to love. So I understand the dynamic with that. But what man would put that type of demand on a woman to the point where she felt like she couldn't literally pay her rent? And he kept asking for the money. And that's the problem that I'm having with this scenario. Elijah speaks to child support and alimony, the outrageous cost of that. But it also speaks to the fact that there are inherently men out there who really don't understand that at the end of the day, if a relationship don't work out, bruh, you an able-bodied man, get your ass up, get to work, and then don't even put no more demand. I don't understand that, Elijah. I really don't understand. I want to call Ken Du Isaac a whole bunch of other names because I really don't understand it. Like, bro, you are not a man if you're doing this to your ex-wife. Like, I don't care how contentious the relationship is. You are not a man. You don't tell your ex-wife, bro, you wanted to pay me $30,000 a month for one man? Negro, please. Go ahead, bro.
I'm in complete agreement with you, but we are entering a time and stage in this society, Farajii, that we don't believe in manhood, because in trying to right the wrongs of history, what history has done to women, we throwing the baby out in the bathwater. And so because we're trying to right the wrongs, we don't believe men should be provided. That's what we're teaching across schools. That's what we're teaching our girls and our boys. We don't believe men are being providers. And so he's the first example, but I foresee that in the next generation of boys, this is going to be a trend of things that's happening because we don't believe in manhood. And when it comes to the conversations about toxic masculinity and what men should not be and what men should not do, our culture right now is focused on what men shouldn't do. Men shouldn't do this, they shouldn't do that, they shouldn't do this. And that's a great conversation. But our boys today growing up 70% of them grown in single home, have no idea about a manhood and what it means to be a man. And we in a society are so scared to talk about that anymore that we're producing boys that are not becoming men. They're not becoming men at all. And they don't know their duty. They don't know their responsibility to self, family, or community. And they're not going to carry it out. And so, man, I use Mary J. Blige for her money, and I take her money and I do all that. And I still feel like a man because where in the cultures is telling me that I'm not a man. Because
go ahead, say it again, brother.
The feminist line of thinking, nah, you ain't no man. No, well, it's equality. That's what we focused on. We focused on equality. Everybody be the same. And so when it comes to the Mary J. Blige situation, this is an indication of the same. And what you're saying, I'm in so agreement with that. Everything can't be the same. A man is supposed to be striving to be a provider. And when the relationship ends, you keep working and try to strive to support the woman and children if you have them. But we don't believe that anymore. And it's going to be a whole lot of problems in relationships because women are going to be expecting things from men and men are going to be expecting things from women that are unconscious. But the culture is so against that we don't even know our duties and responsibilities to each other anymore.
Can I just say, Farajii?
Go ahead, because I'm about to fire off now. Go ahead.
In some ways, I personally believe that Black men have been raised by single Black women for so long now that they just think that Black women are supposed to take care of them. I've had to even say to my own mother about my 34-year-old brother, take the damn titty out his mouth. He is grown. He's grown. Stop treating him like he's a damn child. Black men, and I'm not saying all Black men, because I do know a lot of amazing Black men who even were raised by single mothers, but I personally think that has in some ways, I agree with what Elijah said about everything that's been equal. I can't even tell you how many Black men I hear now talk about they supposed to pay half the rent and come home with dinner made. What? So I'm paying half the bills and doing all the housework. That's not half, man. That's not half. But again, you're so used to a Black woman taking care of your ass that you don't know how to take care of her. Take care of your women. Get out of this.
I agree.
Black woman owes you something. We don't owe you a damn thing.
No, and in this case, like I said, they didn't have children. And people are checking in. I want to share with you just what some of our watchers checking in. The infamous Kiki said, a smart man, that's what kind of man, Farajii. A smart man, he is not the only man to get alimony from a celebrity. This goes way back. I get that. I get that he's not the only man. I'm just saying, deep inside of every real man, you have this little monitor, this little meter that says, you know what, I might be overstepping my bounds a little bit.
Corny. He is corny. But personally, I'm mad at Mary for getting with this broke dude because if she got a right caliber of man like Elijah and Farajii, you know what I mean? You wouldn't even be trying to take her money. It's about the caliber of the man that you deal with. That's the big thing. Because if he was some executive or whatever the case may be, and he was getting his own bag, he'd be like, nah, we good. I'm going my way. You go ahead and go your way. You want a woman to take care of you. And then the fact that you was spending her money. Mary, what the hell? Why was he spending your money when y'all were together? Well, it's so many issues with this situation.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Mary like she crazy. Because at the end of the day, we as women have to start taking some responsibility for the men that we choose to not only lie down with, but then to get into relationships with. He did not become a bum yesterday. He didn't.
No, and a couple of people, Epic Change, my guy who always watches us here on the Black Star Network, said it's automatic thinking at this. First, he said, you're right, Nira. It's automatic thinking at this point. How many Black boys don't experience a two-parent family? Too many. All the way up north said he was her manager. Okay.
$30,000. And he can't manage money. You can't manage.
See, Mary said, Elijah, that when she would go and you know, give him the money, he talking about he don't have it no more. He spent it all. Bruh, $30,000? You blow $30,000 in a month? Come on, man. All right, let me share with you.
How to flip it and reverse it.
Look, Zoe checked in on my. Wait a minute, Zoe checked in and said, Farajii, so happy you brought this topic up. I listened to Rent Money, and I knew it had to be something different because Monet not struggling to pay rent.
Oh, yeah.
Brian checked in. Brian Nichols said, look, there are thousands of men living out of their cars or couch surfing now because they can't pay alimony and child support and rent too. Brian, check this out, bro. Guess what? I think that's absolutely horrific.
I spoke for the fellas. I defended.
That's horrific. I think, and Elijah, this could be, and I know I'm gonna have to do a show on this. I gotta do a segment on it because the laws in various states across the country are so against men. And I'm not saying this from a place like trying to be misogynistic or anything. I'm simply saying a working man has to give up so much money that he can't even live.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know what I'm saying? And his source of income for basic needs become compromised as a result of paying for a situation. Now, look, Nira, you and I talk about this all the time. Don't lay down with nobody without being intentional and having a plan. If you don't plan to have, if you don't want to have children, don't shoot up the club.
You don't want to have kids, don't shoot up the club.
Don't be, but you got to be intentional. You got to be intentional about your family planning. You got to be intentional about your finances. You got to be intentional. And
you got to be intentional about who you lay down with, period.
And intentional about who you lay down with.
Oh my God, that's a whole nother topic though.
That's a whole nother conversation. But go ahead, Elijah.
That's a culture thing. Like, this is why we on the culture. That's a culture thing. We have to institute that as a rule in our community. So in Tendea family, every member of Tendea family agree that I won't have sex with anybody I'm not in relationship with. And by relationship, I intend to spend my rest of my life with them. So we have to get back to a courting process and a process by which we, have sex and have kids. Because you can't separate sex from kids. It don't matter how many Plan Bs is out there, how many condoms are out there. Sex produces kids. And sometimes mistakes happen. And so I think we have to, we as Black men, yes, sir.
I don't want to cut you off, but here's what I think we should do culturally. You can't call it a mistake when you go into it knowing what the end result is going to be. It's not a mistake. That's a conscious decision. We know how biology works. So you can't be like, oh, it was a mistake that you got pregnant. Now, unless that woman has some other things going on with her body or something like that, or she might be, that's one thing. But if we know that unprotected sex there's a high probability that you could have a child from unprotected sex. We know this stuff.
Yeah. But I'm saying,
guess what? The culture is no condoms, or we don't want to be protecting each other. And therefore, we make these decisions because it's not an intentional choice. It's a convenient choice. Now we're running back and having these conversations. Now we got baby mama drama. We got all this other stuff that's happening. But if you made the decision at the beginning and you knew the consequences, quote unquote, and you knew what the end result could be, come on, man! Like this is not rocket science. This is producing babies. This is about spending your life with somebody. Go ahead, Elijah. I'm sorry, brother.
That's the truth. So what I'm saying is also that when I come to you, like brother Farajii, man, I had this shorty last night. Oh my God, right? You got to frown upon that. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying we as a community I shouldn't be able to go to another Black man and he'd be like, yo, dang, man, what was she like? Who was that? And I get a pat on back about that, because as long as our community does that, then it'll keep happening. Because if I get the affirmations and I get the pats on the back for rolling like that, and now, instead of Black women staying where they are, or women in general staying where they are, they like, man, we can do it too. So it's even getting worse because both of us doing it now.
Right.
And yeah. You dragging, I'm dragging, Elijah.
Yeah, everybody dragging. Everybody, I'm not.
What we doing?
People that's not from Baltimore, we apologize. The point is, though, we gotta stop. We gotta stop dragging, shagging, and dragging out here. So
let me tell you, we do have to stop. Look, Epic said the real reason is that we can't get that feeling with condoms, and we won't be honest about it. Man, look, let me tell you something.
No. Hold on. I gotta tell the ladies.
Hold on. Let me just. I just want that out there.
Get some condoms.
You get that feeling for 2 minutes, man, and then you got 18 to 21 years.
No, it's forever. You know, having the kids for life. But I promise you, I get it. No, let's be real. I'm a woman. I am a woman. Condoms are absolutely disgusting. I hate them. They smell. They feel terrible. And they have gluten in them, and I have a gluten allergy. I did not know that. But yes, my ladies, I'm gonna throw it out there. It's called Lovability. They are women-made condoms. They are freaking amazing. Lovability. Just thank me later.
I hear you. So I mean, when we're seeing all of this stuff, you know, and again, I think it opens the conversation up to the fact that we're talking about choices and finding a mate, choices on who you lay down with. Choices in terms of how to, if you are a high income earner, how to manage that when you're bringing somebody else into your life that may not be a high income earner. Like, these are all adult decisions, and a lot of times we fumble and jumble, trial and error our ways through making these very important decisions on the back end instead of having a plan of action on how to deal with these decisions if they come up on the front end. And that's the problem that I'm seeing. I feel bad. Somebody say, "Oh, Farajii, you accepted Mary's truth." It is. Why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't you accept a woman's pain who said she couldn't hardly pay her rent at that time because she was putting so much money out there for alimony? Yes, I must accepting her truth, because I realize as men, we've done so much damage, especially Black men, because we've been damaged. We've done damage to the women that are closest to us. And as a result of that, we just bring a whole bunch of hell and brimstone on a situation that could have been dealt with in a much more emotionally, financially, socially mature way. We bring it on ourselves in some cases, so it's unfortunate.
But Farajii, but like you just said, Mary brought it on herself. She did. The same way all the brothers.
You know what? Though, and it's sad.
But it's the same way all these brothers out here are paying all this money in child support. We just talked about that, and we're not even talking about celebrities. We're talking about Black men who are working jobs, making $17 an hour, and their whole check is going to a baby mama and hopefully trickling down to the kid. So I mean, it's a broken system. I mean, how many systems do we have broken in this country? God damn. I can't even keep up anymore. But it's another. It's just added to the list of another broken system.
And that's a big thing. And so, you know, we only got a couple of moments left. But look, I know that there's going to have to be another fuller conversation about these choices, and most importantly, the child support, alimony support system has to be addressed. I mean, when people are bringing, and I don't care, I get it, you're a celebrity. For example, you know, I think they said like Michael Strahan, he had to pay, you know, like some crazy amount of money to his ex for his child and all of that stuff. And it's just like, you know what? And Elijah, you brought it up. This culture of greed is so prevalent that you get with people only to get something from them, not because you're trying to build with them. And that's part of why we are seeing relationships, marriages, and all of these coming together just fall apart, because we always in a mindset, I think, of just trying to get something from them. Very transactional. You know, yes, there's love there, but we don't respect the person enough to be able to say, hey, you know what? I don't want anything from you. No, everything is like what I can get and then you get yours. We do that with intimacy. We do that with money. We do that with time, which is very transactional. All right, just off my soapbox, man. I'm off my soap. Oh, I gotta appreciate y'all so much. My wife, Arthur, she is the author, writer. She is an activist, as well as the host of the Queen Talks with Nira podcast. You can find that on all streaming platforms, folks. Definitely check it out. My guy, Elijah Miles, chairman and founder of Tendea Family. Make sure y'all check him out on all his social media and the work that they're doing out in the community in Baltimore. I appreciate y'all. Love my Wednesday panel. Thank y'all so much for being a part of the show today. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I thank you so much for being a part of the discussion. So many of you have just been putting comments out there, and we try to get to all of your comments and share. But thank you so much for tuning in today. Of course, you know, we want you to continue to show your support. Make sure you give something to Black Star Network. You can go to our website at blackstarnetwork.com and do your due diligence to support Black media. You know, you wouldn't hear this conversation or these types of conversations on any other platform with Black folks unless Black folks own it. Black folks are managing it. Black folks are putting these programs together. And I'm very, very happy that we have this dynamics team. I got some wonderful producers, some wonderful culture crew members that are helping to bring these conversations to life. So make sure you support the Black Star Network at blackstarnetwork.com through all of these these payment options. All right, that's going to do it for me. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. I thank you for your patience as we deal with some of the technical difficulties at the beginning of the show. So thank you so much for staying with the show today. We truly, truly appreciate it. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Talk to you soon. Peace.